Hi everyone, and welcome to the part 3 video of week 2 of 3D modeling. So we just covered the alien, which was your mini assignment for the week. So we'll be developing a scene using that alien this week. We're going to be finishing off this week. So I'm going to teach you guys how to build up a small house in 3D using the tools that we've currently learned and expanding upon those. Now, the reason why we're using the tools we currently learned is I want to really push it into your heads that the standard primitives, the extended primitives, and the basic systems we get in 3D Studio Max are pretty much how every modeler starts building out everything they do. And for the rest of their career, these are the exact tools they use over and over again. Really, we have two different menus: the basic geometry menu, the shapes menu that we use to create 3D models. The next one after that is lights and cameras, helpers, and space warps. The geometry menu and the spline menus and the shapes are exactly what not most, all modelers use in the industry. So we're definitely going to focus on and just keep building upon those tools and really expanding upon making sure that we use them correctly. I've given you all reviews and advice on the models that you've currently done. So just take that advice into account for the next models that you'll be doing and for your alien spaceship. And now moving on, we're going to create a barn. So as before, when we were working on our alien spaceship, I always want you guys to look up references for everything you do. So for this one, I'm just going to look up barn reference. That hopefully will help us out. I'm seeing some pictures of barns here that look pretty good. I think this is the one I'll go with since it seems to be like a very generic looking barn. I'm going to build out the detail on that. So when it comes down to the geometry of this, I'm going to start building this up just the way I see it. So I like to keep a reference on my other monitor. So those who want this reference image, please try and find that by looking up the same thing I did, barn reference, and finding this image. I'm going to plop it over to my second screen right now, and I'm going to begin modeling using this. So I'm just going to pop that off to the side just like this, and now I'll begin modeling. So if you either freeze framed or save the image I sent, I might link you guys to it. I'll save it to my desktop right now and link you guys with this. I'm going to start building up the basic scene using blocks. So I want this to be my barn, let's say. I have a silo that's connected to the barn, which is slightly taller, and it should be the same length and width wise. So I'm going to change it to 45 by 45. So I know the length and width are the exact same. I actually might make them much smaller. I'm seeing, yeah, that looks about right to me, 35 by 35. I'm seeing the barn's actually a bit longer, so I'm going to play around with the length of it, like that. And then they have another small barn in the background. But I'm just going to worry about these two important parts for our render. Will be the barn and will be the basic silo right here. And we'll start with these and just sort of expand upon those. So name your references. This is my silo reference, and this is my barn reference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alt X these, make them transparent, and I'm going to freeze them so that I know that this is the size I want to work in. So I'm going to work with this, that. The reason why it's a little bit smaller than my actual reference is I counted the triangle roof in there. So I'm going to start working on that. Now the best way to start working on that roof is easy enough. I'm not going to convert this to editable poly just yet. I'm going to actually add some more polygons to it. I know that I might have to add a little bit more polygons everywhere. So I'm just going to add like 2 segments each side for now. I can expand upon that afterwards, so I'm not too concerned. I'm going to convert it to editable poly, and I know that this needs to happen first. If I look at my reference, that's pretty much what happens first. And I know that one side of the barn is actually a little bit longer than the others. So it kind of looks more like this shape, which is great. So I'm kind of getting this shape going on. Now I can kind of make this a reference right here. So I know that my silo always has to go here, and I can just build this from afar, and then I know that I always have my reference picture here, which will always last. Now, first things first, these polygons underneath here, I can delete them. You're never going to see the underneath of my barn, especially if I'm going to render it just from this angle. I mean, I can even delete these polygons right here, and these ones on this side right here. The angle that we're going to render our scene at matters a lot. You can see I deleted all those polygons, that, and that, because the only way we're ever going to see our scene in a video game, movie, commercial, anything, is from this specific angle. So there's no reason to have the polygons that you're not viewing. They're a waste of space, And for texturing purposes, you're going to have to unwrap all these textures. And if they're there, they'll just be a waste of texture space too. If they're off your texture map, they'll be weird looking, they'll be disorienting. So if you just delete those polygons, then you save yourself a ton of time. If you play a lot of your video games, and if you look up like buggy video games and stuff, you're going to notice most of your video games have clips like this through a lot of the buildings. Counter Strike is a perfect example of a game where if you try and go to spectator mode and float around the map, look behind and inside things, you're going to see tons of issues like that. Um, so it's not an issue as long as the camera doesn't go back there. If the camera is going to go back there, then I would suggest to actually model the back. But for us and for our scene that we're building up, we're actually going to have it like this. So I take a look at it further and I'm going to break it down. And always break down thick details first as much as possible before getting down to thin detail. So when I talk about thin detail, I mean these windows would be actually like, these would actually fit kind of like mid detail. But I want to build up this roof first, and then these will probably be separate models I'm going to build on top. And then because we're focusing on the barn exactly, I might need to do an extrusion here, and then this part needs to be extruded inward slightly. So that's what's going to be my next focus, is extruding that inward. So I'm going to grab these vertices and lower them down a bit. Say about here-ish. Sounds good. And I'm going to do an extrusion inwards. So I'm going to grab these and I'm going to extrude those just slightly inwards like that. I'm going to delete these polygons down the ground because these definitely don't need to be there. This doesn't need to be there. Grab this vertex. I'm going to grab the polygon there. There you go. So now I have a slight extrusion inwards, which looks like it's going to work great for us. I'm going to just adjust it just a little bit. Like that. So now I have a slight extrusion inwards. We're getting that detail in I like. Next step, I want to take the roof and extrude. I'm just explaining my process as I go along. If you find that you're having a different way of doing yours, that's cool too. I just extruded my roof a little slightly, and I'm extruding little edges to my roof now. I noticed that there's only a slight edge on the left side of my roof and a slight edge on the right side of my, on both sides of my roof, I should say. So I'm just going to make a slight edge there that goes down, and I'm going to repeat it on this side. Because even though I don't see the polygons on the back side of this, I will probably see a bit of the edge that I'm going to extrude here. For instance, if I extrude it this far down and try and match the angle, you see we can still see some of the edge of that polygon barn. And I know I need to adjust it just a little bit. I'm probably going to need to lower this side just ever so slightly downwards to make it as accurate as possible to my reference. Now my reference is literally just a reference to know what a barn looks like. So it doesn't need to be 100%. But if I build the base part of the barn, you can see now that's starting to match pretty close. So now I need to do an inset on this side of the wall here. And it looks like there's some sort of like a delivery or some sort of sliding part of the shed. It looks like it pushes inward a little bit. So I'm just going to add a small inset here, which looks like it goes about here-ish, like that. And I'm just going to extrude it in just ever so slightly and with a small scale, like that. I'm going to make it the same smoothing group as the side of this wall here. It looks like it is actually pretty smooth with everything else. So by assigning it a smoothing group like that, it appears a bit smooth, and it's not getting the result I quite like. I might change the smoothing group to change this one to 8. Yeah, it's okay. It might be something we have to tweak and work on a bit, but overall, it's not too bad. Once we texture it and everything, we're gonna get a better look. You can see on my reference that it is kind of embedded. I think it's a little bit of a push in, and that's what we kind of have here. I might just soften it a little bit by pushing this more forward like that. And then if we do a render, once we add our lights in the scene, it won't be so bad. But you can see, there we go. That's looking a lot better already. Just a little pushed outwards. And then we have that. So I would do the same process for you with the insets to get these little windows popping in. So I might just grab these, do an inset, and then I'll make a small window just by scaling everything in, making sure it's pretty rounded. popping it there, and then I'll repeat the same process to try and get another window about the same scale here. And that looks like it pretty much is the same size, maybe just a little bit of adjustment like that. And that will be over here. Now I can grab both these polygons and I can do another inset if I really want to. First, I'm going to extrude just ever so slightly to create that windowsill type shape. I'm going to inset, and I'm going to expand that inset. I'm going to extrude this inwards. Then we have this set up, to which we can just texture the window on the inside. I'm not too fond about the detail there. We can actually just create the models of the windows and then push them back. So I'm going to push this back just like that. I'm going to grab the top part of these windowsills actually. Oops. Let's try and go in a little bit detail here. Grab the top part here. Oh, sorry. I'm going to save my scene just to back up. I'm going to call this farmhouse. I'm going to try that again a little bit later. But really, I was just going to make a little bit of a windowsill. But I seem to be running into an issue with grabbing the top polygons. Yeah. Don't know why that's happening. Sometimes stuff like this can happen inside 3D Studio Max, and it could be some of the scene settings that I'm playing around with. Normally, I would just do a scene reset, but I got enough detail here that I think I'm ready to work with to make the rest of the model. So we just keep expanding upon that. All I've been doing is using the basic tools to extrude inset, and I managed to develop the side of the house that looks okay. So what I want to do, I'll finish off those windows first by adding in those polygons to make the actual partitions of the glass. So I'm going to just create these little sections like this, pull them forward. See there, we created little bars to the windows, and I'm going to just like scale them a bit, make sure they match. And I'm looking and I see they have 3 by 3 by 2, sorry. So 1, 2, and 3. So if I split this pretty evenly, and then I'm going to copy these and just rotate them, and rotate them by approximately 90 degrees. And then I'm going to scale them outwards. So now I'm getting, there you go. So now I'm getting the window vibe. You can see what I'm going for right there, the 3 by 2 window thing setup. And I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to reference them. So now I have the windows built out here, and we're just slowly building up our scene as we go along. And then we're going to add the detail in the silo. With the silo is the same thing as we did our alien ship. You see it's a big cylinder. I do an extrusion, and I'll keep building it upwards. So with the cylinder, and then I can convert it to an editable poly. I'll delete this, then I'll go to border mode. I'll do an extrude and a scale. So after I do that, I'm just gonna push this out here, just like this. There we go. And then I'm gonna go to border mode. I'm running into a small issue with 3D Studio Max here. But border mode, then I'm gonna scale up, scale in just a little bit, scale up, extrude up, sorry, a bit again. And then I have this little edge. And then what I'm gonna do next is build the other part by extruding outwards, slightly downwards, like that, and then extrude inwards a couple times like this. And just doing like a whole bunch of extrusions here. Now the same thing can be said for the same thing we did for the barn can be done for the silo as well. Those details that we're not going to see, so the back side here of, if I go to the top here, these polygons here will never be seen by the camera. So it could be something we actually get rid of. If I go to perspective and I delete these, And you can see maybe the top part here, maybe not. But I deleted all that, including the bottom polygons, and I can still render, and I still see my full silo from this angle especially. It still looks fully intact. Now, if you want to make an object not renderable, including these x-rays we have, don't forget you can right click and go to object properties, turn off the option renderable, and it won't render that anymore. So what I would suggest is that you build up the low poly version of your scene with the barn. All I need to see in your scene is just one barn building, which is my building that I built up right now, and a silo. And then that's all you would need. And then adjust the smoothing groups, of course. Make sure everything looks good here. I think everything's kind of looking great here. It looks like it's going to be ready for texturing. This is going to be handled a lot by the texturing. The one thing we do need to add for the silo is that small house on the side, and it's as easy as just grabbing a few of these polygons and going with an extrude. We kind of get this vibe. You know, we have to make the small roof for it and go into a little detail. So all I'm going to do for the roof here is do a slight extrusion here. Sorry about that. Slight extrusion there. Scale up that. And then I'm going to extrude this polygon down here. Give it a small roof vibe. And you can see I'm getting that roof look right there. I'm going to unfreeze this for a second and grab these vertexes, these models here. I'm going to turn off renderable. And you can see now that barn and silo scene that I have going together kind of starting up to look like this. So I'm just got to keep building it up and adding those details. So what I want you to kind of build together using the tools that you've learned so far, just start adding in a silo and adding in a basic barn. We're going to be handling a lot with the unwraps, which I will start with you this week on. We're going to learn the basics of unwrapping as we go along, but just start modeling this house and stuff like that. Now, we're not done with the modeling tutorial. This isn't like a modeling tutorial. This is just the lesson that we're going to start with. With our UFO, we're going to have the barn scene and have them pull up a tractor and stuff like that. So what I want to get you guys used to doing is modeling things in a lot of detail. Now, so far we've been doing things in a lot of low poly and then adding a turbo smooth. For instance, if I add this and I add a turbo smooth modifier to it, and then change separate by in turbo smoothing groups, you can see it really added a lot of detail to our model, and our comparison is night and day between the low polygon to the high polygon. You can see there's a lot of hard edges here, but this actually looks a lot softer. And if we add a second iteration right here, it actually looks a lot better. And don't forget that you actually have to change the amount of smoothing groups to different smoothing groups here. So if I turn these smoothing groups different to a different number, and I turn these to a different number, let's call this 8. Let's call these for 29. I turn off the other smoothing groups, and then I put this smooth back on. You can see that looks a lot better with the smoothing group on than it does off. Even in the render, it looks way cleaner, way better. Everything looks a lot smoother. And that way we can look at it really up close, and you can start seeing a lot of that detail that we'll need. Now we can always expand upon these details. You notice that this has a lot of metal sheets in it, and we can really go to town on that detail. And I mean, if we go turn off turbo smooth for a second, we can just extrude each of these plates one by one. And I'm going to grab, let's say they have to be separated. Like the more separated they are, the better. So if I just grab a whole bunch of sheets like this, I can do a slight bevel to each of these panels, and we can go crazy on the amount of detail that we can put in. And we can render out the silo detail. You could look how much detail that just added just by doing a couple of bevel extrusions. And if I wanted to keep that detail and I can start moving these along. And here's a quick suggestion actually, and this might save you quite a bit of time when it comes to modeling. So you see, I have this nice row of extruded beveled polygons, and I can keep beveling these polygons all day, and you know, we can get a whole row of beveled extrusions. Do not be afraid. Okay, this is very important. Do not be afraid to go in and delete an entire row of polygons. I'm going to go to my front view. I'm going to grab the entire row. Oops. grab this entire set of polygons right here and just wipe them out completely. Because we can grab this set of polygons, all of them, and all the work we've done. And since the edge flow is looking good going up and downwards, I can just copy and paste these. Clone to element, adjust the vertexes, and you can weld, and you already have a whole set of polygons already being already developed. So just do one row of polygons if you're going to do all the extrusions for all the metal plating here, and just delete all the other rows and just copy paste. Just drag, hold shift, and just drag the polygons down, and you can cover the base for getting the entire thing done. This is the way sword handles are done. This is the way parts of the guns are done, etc., etc. We just break them down and then take one part of it and just keep copying and pasting it and welding it together. And it's simple. All you need to do is weld. Is I go to this part right here. I grab all the vertexes I want to weld together. So I may go on my front view here, grab all the vertexes I want to weld right here. Sorry, my 3 Studio Max is having a little bit of an issue right now. I grab all the vertexes. Okay, let's do that again. So you grab all the vertexes you want. Anyways, I'll reset my scene, and then you just weld them together, and you'll get your full scene all ready to go. Basically, for this part of the tutorial, we're just repeating those processes that get started on a building, starting using the inset tool to create windows and pushes in there, and the same thing with using basic shapes to create those building shapes to build up our scene. Start working on those and expanding details on your building. Your building is probably going to look a lot different than mine. You'll have a different reference, but the same thing I did for this building is the same exact way I'd start on these little tower tops here. So if you want to get started on that and push ahead, that's absolutely fine as well. We'll keep going on that method. And on the next lesson, I'm going to teach you how to build a small dresser with detail that we can actually work in a video game scene as well. So you can put that in the outside of your barn and a couple small objects that we'll have. Take care and look forward to the next lesson, guys.